Hi everybody and welcome back to Tales of Wanderlust. I'm Cass. Jasper is over here sniffing a tree somewhere, if I can find him. Oh, this is the Jasper search. Where is he? There he is! And today I'm going to go over all of the mods that I have on my 4Runner. They have been on there for 70,000 miles, so I'll let you know how they've held up. So if you're interested, stay tuned. So if you've been following along, you know that I am about to trade in the 4Runner. I have an offer on it from a dealer. I am trading it in for a Toyota Tundra. And the only reason for that is I have a truck camper that I want to throw on the back. So sadly, the 4Runner will no longer work for me. But it has been a very good truck. I absolutely love this thing. In 100,000 miles, I have only put scheduled maintenance into it. I have never had to repair anything. So it has held up very well to living on the road, traveling, a lot of highway and a lot of off-road driving. Now, back when I bought the 4Runner, I actually bought it brand new. And the reason was, even back in 2017, the used ones were selling for basically the same price as the brand new ones. When you're shopping for a new one, you have a choice of a lot of different options. So it took me a while to figure out which trim level I wanted, but I ended up going with the TRD Off-Road Premium. I did not go with the TRD Pro because upon doing research, I found the TRD Pro really gives you a different appearance package, skid plates, some different tires, and then a different suspension. It was about $10,000 for me to get a TRD Pro 4Runner versus this TRD Off-Road Premium at the time. I don't know what prices are today, so I don't know if that's any different, but it was a lot to go up to a TRD Pro. So with doing some research, I learned that all of the upgrades that you get on the TRD Pro, other than the front grille and those kind of things, I could do for cheaper than that $10,000. So I ended up opting for the TRD Off-Road Premium. The Premium was so I could get leather seats, which I highly recommend if you're gonna be doing a lot of off-roading or you have animals. It is super easy to clean. Not that I clean it very often, but if you ever need to, very easy to clean. It doesn't get smelly. It really is great. As for the TRD off-road version, I got it so I could have the crawl mode and all of those features. But after 100,000 miles, I've actually never used the crawl mode. I don't do any crazy rock bouldering or off-roading or anything like that. I simply use it to get off-road, back to those boondocking sites that are much further out from people. And then I have done some exploring with it, but it's really not something I go and drive up rocks and different things like that. So I've never used the crawl control. In the end, the leather seats, absolutely, I would get again. The crawl mode and all of those packages, I don't know if I would actually pay the extra money for them again. When I first got the 4Runner, I actually ran with it stock for about 30,000 miles. The biggest issue with it was the rear sag when I was towing. I had Timbren bump stops put on. They were great when I was towing. There was no sag, it was really smooth, they were awesome. But when I didn't have the trailer attached, they were very rough off-road. I went on the back roads to Oatman, Arizona. My friend was in the back seat and he hit his head on my ceiling multiple times because the ride was so bumpy with those bump stops. So the first thing I did when I did the upgrades was figured out a way to replace those Timbren bump stops. Then I also decided that I wanted the upgraded suspension. I wanted a really nice smooth ride off-road. Jasper does not like off-roading. He doesn't like loud noises or bumps. So I wanted to make this as comfortable and as smooth as possible when we were off-road. So I started researching off-road suspensions, what to do, and let me tell you, that is not my forte. So even after researching for hours, it was just more than I wanted to really put my mind to. So I decided to just leave it up to the pros. So I ended up finding RSG Off-Road, which is a shop in Denver, Colorado. And I just emailed them and said, hey, here's my 4Runner. I want it to be smooth off-road. I live full-time in an Airstream, so it needs to be able to tow that. I want bigger off-road tires. I want the blacked out rims. And I kind of just gave them a list of everything I was looking for. When I first went to them, I did want all sorts of light bars and everything for the front, and so they gave me a quote for that as well. Jasper, no! The other big thing I wanted was an onboard air compressor, and I will say the onboard air compressor out of all of the mods is the thing I use the most. So what did RSG put on here for the suspension and the upgrades, and how is it held up? So for the suspension itself, I have the Bilstein 6112 and 5160 shocks. I have SPC upper control arms, OME rear coil springs, and when they put those on, they were able to put a 3-inch lift onto it as well. I will say when I asked them to put 3-inch lift on here, I was a little nervous at first because I didn't want anything that looked too crazy lifted. So I asked a couple of forums and they actually kind of made fun of me for asking about a 3-inch lift on a 4Runner because it is so common. In the end, really love the way it looks. I think all of the mods ended up turning out really well on this. The next thing I wanted was the TRD blacked out rims. So these are the 17-inch matte wheels. And then I wanted a really good solid off-road all-terrain tire. This is what was suggested by RSG. It is the Falcon Wild Peak AT3W. I will say on the highway, they're very quiet. I can't even really tell that I have an all-terrain tire on. They've held up really well. I would like to say 60 to 70,000 miles on them, and the tread is actually still pretty good. The only thing that I don't like about them is they're not too great in the snow or on the ice. But overall, I have towed in the snow. I have driven through the snow. It just takes a little bit of extra caution or bringing chains along. Also, by putting on the bigger tires, the wheels, all of that, I didn't need to have spacers installed. So with the new suspension, I would have had to pay, I think it was like $300 for the spacers. I ended up taking that money, putting it towards the wheels. It in no way covered the cost of the wheels, but I got the look I was going for, and I saved a little bit of money on the suspension as well. The next thing we needed to solve was the sag in the rear of the 4Runner. So the Airstream that I tow is about 450 pounds tongue weight. Jasper's off chasing sticks. I love that he can play with himself like that. Hi, Buds! The max capacity on the 4Runner is 500 pounds tongue weight. So it's pretty darn close, and it does cause a lot of rear sag. So when I took this to RSG, what they recommended doing was either adding on heavy duty rear springs, which would also give me a pretty poor effect when driving off-road, or adding in rear airbags. So I ended up opting for the rear airbags. I have the Airlift 1000 installed on here. I can inflate them right by the hitch, and I actually can use the onboard air compressor in order to do so, which is really nice. One thing to keep in mind about the rear airbags is it doesn't actually remove any weight off the rear suspension. So if you were looking to remove the weight, then I would recommend a weight distribution hitch or something like that. But I've never had the airbags pop. When the airbags are filled, there's no sag, and it does really well. Also, if you do get airbags, just know they don't take much air at all. I blew these things up to about 35 PSI without knowing it the first time I tried inflating it. It really doesn't take much to fill them. So I run it at 15 to 20 PSI when I'm towing, and 5 PSI when I'm not towing. Now for my favorite mod of them all. It's the ARB twin air compressor. We have it installed on board here in the 4Runner. So I have a switch inside. I just turn the engine on, hit that switch, and the air compressor comes on. I can't even tell you how many times I've used the ARB. One time I was camping and I had a nail in my tire, so there was a slow leak. I woke up in the morning and it was basically flat. I was able to inflate my tire with this so I could drive into town and get that fixed. But this thing has been amazing. I am actually going to pull this and take it with me and put it in the Tundra because I love the onboard compressor so much. It is the dual. It is a little overkill. The reason I did it is I hang out with RVers, and some of them have really large fifth wheels, and I wanted an air compressor that could take care of any kind of wheel that I come across. That way, if there's ever a friend in need, I can help them out. I haven't had to do that, so I can't tell you how it does with bigger tires, but for my 35-inch tires, it does great. It doesn't even notice. It's awesome. One of the questions I get quite often about having all these mods on the 4Runner is, what is the gas mileage? It is not good. So with the 3-inch lift, but also with the GOE rack, the Thule, the suspension, everything on it, I get about 14 miles to the gallon. That is combined. So on the highway, it's in theory a little bit more, under 65 miles an hour, over 65, or with winds, it's pretty bad. But 14 combined, down from the rated, I believe it's 20 miles per gallon. So not very good, but I did a lot of off-roading, so I really did use the upgrades. So to me, in the end, it was definitely worth it. So what mods did I not do on the 4Runner? I did ask them to do full light bars here in the front grille and then also up on the roof. It was gonna be about $2,700 to do all of that. So with the cost of everything, I didn't think I would actually use the lights that much, so I opted not to do it. I'm glad I didn't in the end because I don't do a lot of off-roading at night, and when I'm at the campsite, I'm usually in the Airstream. So I don't think I really would have used the lights too much. It would have looked cool, but it wasn't worth the $2,700 to me at the time. So all in all, everything RSG did was about $5,000. That did not include the cost of the tires and wheels. I bought those separate and then shipped them into RSG, but that was back in the day when prices were cheaper. I got the Falcon tires a lot cheaper than they are today. I think they're about twice the price that I actually paid for them. So I don't know what the different mods would cost today, but it was about $7 grand total for everything when I did it. So having the upgraded suspension has really given me extra confidence going off-road, and that I really appreciate, and I don't think you can put a price on that because I've gone a lot more places than I normally would have if the 4Runner had still stayed stock. So that is it. Those are some of the mods I've done to the 4Runner. This is extremely bittersweet because this is the last off-roading trip I am doing with the 4Runner. She's getting traded in 2 days for a Toyota Tundra. So I am going to miss this truck immensely. It has been so good to me over the last 100,000 miles, and I can only hope that the Tundra does as well as the 4Runner's done. So if you have any questions on any of the mods at all, feel free to comment below. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, everybody, and we'll see you next time.